This week on Inside Athletic Training, we welcome in Ken Crenshaw, the Director of Sports Medicine and Performance for the Arizona Diamondbacks. On this episode, Ken walks us through his recent presentation on building the ultimate sports medicine and performance team. Enjoy the show. All right, Ken, welcome to the Inside Athletic Training Podcast. Super excited to have you on. You've been mentioned by a lot of your former colleagues on the show as a leader and an important figure in sports medicine. You're currently the Director of Sports Medicine and Performance with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Last week, you spoke at the PBATS Educational Symposium about building the ultimate sports medicine and performance team. We're going to get into some key details about your presentation here shortly, but to kick it off, I want to let you share your story, some background information about you and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Well, thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me on. And, I'm always honored to be able to help PBATS out and any future athletic trainers or performance people. It's my purpose in life. How do I help people get to where I've got to? So really excited to do this. Just a little background. I grew up in a really small town in New Mexico on a cattle ranch, actually, and played sports growing up. Had a pretty famous dad from our small town. He actually played for the Philadelphia Eagles. And so, we had some high standards of being able to compete in sports. And we did that in the small town. I had a unbelievable life experience just growing up there. And then I went to New Mexico State and I was going to try to play basketball. And I tore my ACL and ended up spending a lot of time in the athletic training room after surgery. And I just thought, wow, this is really cool. I love what these people do, the way they're serving me at the time and helping me, get better and back to health. So I just I fell in love with that, and I took off from there. I jumped in with the baseball team one year, and then I ended up getting hired by the Pittsburgh Pirates way back in the day, 1989. And it was mainly just short season teams in the summer. I went back, did that for 3 years. And then I was trying to get into physical therapy school, and the Atlanta Braves came along and offered me a strength and conditioning coordinator position. And I took that, and I never looked back. I was just like, wow, what a cool opportunity. But it was a shift into what I was doing from athletic training to the performance side. But now that I look at it, I'm like, what an incredible, lucky opportunity, and an opportunity that showed me how to blend a whole team together instead of having the performance on one side and the medical on the other. It was all one team, is the way I saw it. So that actually was a really profound experience for me. And I did that for 5 years with the Braves. And then when Tampa Bay Rays started, they were an expansion team, and they hired me to kind of oversee all of it. We didn't have not one person on board. So I got to kind of pick and choose the people that came on board in the performance side and the medical side. And that's when I really started to learn about selection of people, which is some of what I talked about in some of the team building stuff. And lo and behold, I whiffed on some and I hit the bullseye on others. Yeah. And what I learned in that moment is that there's more power in the group than there is in me, because one of the guys I selected was Ron Porterfield. Jamie Reed was another one that I was involved with. And as we moved forward, we started doing it together. We were picking people together, and then I just saw that our hit rate was way higher, and what we were looking for just became more obvious. And it was a profound moment for me, because I realized, wow, there's just more power in a group decision than there is just in my own decision. So that's after the Rays, then I came here to the Arizona Diamondbacks, and just walked into something that was already pseudo built, and then brought Nate Shaw with me from Tampa Bay, and we just had the same concept. How do we build a great team here? And so we just started sitting down with everybody and saw what they were committed to, and and told them, these are the standards that we want to play by, and this is what we're committed to. If you want to be a part of it, let's go. And that's kind of where I'm at now is I just reflect on all of the experiences I've had and the things that have helped me get to where I'm at, and the people that I've crossed have been amazing. So I'm honored to be a part of the PBATS group.
Yeah, I think a lot of our guests on the show, Ken, in the past have kind of come from your athletic training tree, which I think is super interesting and a testament to, like you said, being successful at selecting people who are going to do big things and go on to, make a name for themselves in athletic training. So I think it's super interesting to hear your perspective on team building. To start your presentation, you talked about the high performing team. You showcased kind of a pyramid built on trust first and foremost. Can you kind of share that pyramid, purpose, mission, standards, communication, everything that goes into building that team from the trust point of view?
Right. Yeah. I again, fortunate enough when I was in high school, I had a basketball coach who changed my life. And he was a big John Wooden guy. So he always taught John Wooden's pyramid of success. So in essence, when I've looked back upon the years, I really bear down on the things that make a great team, like not just a sports medicine performance team, but a baseball team or a hockey team or a basketball or a business team. It really doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. So what I did is I stepped back and I wanted to kind of build the model the same way and just look at, what are all the things that we've done that we've had success with. And so it really, on the bottom of the pyramid, and the most important thing is what I would call shared trust. Do we trust each other? Am I trustworthy? Are the people following me trust-willing? And I think that creates what I would call trustability. Like we all have to trust each other for us to be a really connected, high-performing team. And then, beyond that, we have to have a shared purpose and, shared values and a shared mission. And when we all have that, we all have our own individual, probably purpose. Some people don't know what it is, but they have their own values, their own missions, and people go on these singular paths, but that's not what makes a great team. Is like, we all have to agree that these are the things that we all value. And this is the mission we want to go on. Like our sports medicine performance team has a mission, and we just want to be the best sports medicine performance team on the planet. That's kind of what we came up with as a group. Not me as the leader telling them what we should do. It was a group effort. And then everybody gets committed to those things, and we talk through our values and sifted them down. And now you have a really strong rock to work all of the other things off of when you have those standards set and those agreements set on what you're committed to.
And I think one of the, outside of the, how to build the successful sports medicine performance team, one of the interesting things in the presentation that I took from it was the other side of things. So the dysfunctions of a team, just to list a couple here: the absence of trust, lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability. Talk about those and kind of what, in your experience of building really incredible teams in Major League Baseball, how those dysfunctions can really take a toll on the successful team.
Yeah, some of that works from a guy named Pat Lencioni, who wrote a lot of books around team building too. And he has the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And on the bottom of his pyramid is the lack of trust. So I built the pyramid on strength, not necessarily on what will erode the team. I just know the things that you need to have a strong team. He actually pointed out the things that will erode the team. Mm-hmm. So, a lack of trust, there's several things on his pyramid that I'm like, well, yeah, inattention to results pops into my mind. If you have a really strong team, but you're not getting results, and then you have to question the system that you're using. Is the system that we're using really good or not? And I always say it comes down to people and systems. When you have those two things at a high level, then you're going to get the results you want. So really, when I was forming my pyramid, I thought about it in almost the reverse of what Pat was describing. So I really feel like there's certain things in there that you have to have, and I can touch on those if you want, or we can pivot
absolutely.
another direction.
No, that'd be great.
So, yeah. So if I think about the individual things that you need to have a really strong team, you have to have people that are egoless. You have to have people that are curious to learn. You have to have people that are committed. And in that space, a lot of people are committed. It's like New Year's Day, everybody's committed to losing weight.
Yeah.
But 2 weeks later, if you look at the science, it generally doesn't work out that way. So I say commitment that's followed by action, and it's followed by action, and it's followed by action, and it's followed by action, because action is the ultimate of what's going to get you the result you want. So you can be committed, but you have to have action, and you have to have recommitment to whatever it is you're committed to daily. And then the two other things that really individual side of things, I think a really good team, their members need to have what we call team ability. And this is a term that I got from the Navy SEALs. I have several Navy SEAL friends, and they call it the ability to lead when it's time for you to lead, and the ability for you to follow when it's time for you to follow. And I've noticed that in our team and in any great team is like sometimes, like me as quote the leader, there's other people better than me. So why wouldn't I follow their lead on these things? And that is really important to me. I think good teams can pivot off of, hey, who's leading this mission? And then maybe it's somebody else the next one. And in that space, as the leader, I have to pivot to being the follower and really follow up if we're going to have a great adaptable team. And then the last one is resilience. Like you have to have people that are resilient, that because you're going to get, in athletic training or the performance side, you're the first one there, last one to leave outside of the clubhouse guys. And there's days that get long and old, and, players can be cranky and whatever. There's just a lot of stuff that happens. So you got to be resilient. You got to just keep on keeping on. And, when you add some of that up, it gets to the top of the pyramid, what I call competitive greatness, which is a John Wooden term. And that's just being your best, or being your best when your very best is called for, and your best is called for every day. And that's something that I got from my high school coach, was just kind of ingrained into me, like competitive greatness, being your best when your best is called for. So that's kind of the individual side of things. And if I look at I call it the environmental side of things, which is kind of more team oriented things. You have to have a quality culture, and it's kind of a buzzword. What is a quality culture? I think it's a group of aligned mindsets. People all think the same things. The way they live and breathe and act is kind of the essence of your culture. So if they're saying something but they're not living it, then your culture is probably not very good. The second piece of the environmental side is systems, and I mentioned that a while ago. Like, what does your system look like? How do you select people? How do you develop people? How do you evaluate your people and your systems? Like looking at all of those things is part of a system. So I say your systems have to be tested too, and they have to get results. And if they're not, go watch people that do it well or systems that work well. And then the other ones are selection, which we talked about. You got to be selecting people that are committed to the same things that you are, that have the same drive, that have some abilities that you're looking for. I think communication's a big one. Like you have to be curious, you have to be a good communicator to really get to the top of the profession. For me, and we'll teach you the skills and the other things. But we have the other space is development. Like we have a developmental plan for each person, and they're all individual, but it's like a college program. You come in, hey, what are you good at? Where do we need to help you get better? And then we're committed to that. And then you have to have a feedback or an evaluation system to show people where their blind spots are, and then maybe how they can improve quickly versus letting them figure it out on their own. And then the last piece of the environment is a synergistic system that works together. Everybody's working together, pulling the sled the same way. You can get to your goal a lot quicker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the key things that I took from just hearing you talk now, and also from the presentation, you mentioned culture and how that can kind of be a buzzword. You can hear about great culture, but what does that actually mean? You mentioned right now, great culture is a collection of aligned mindsets, people that think similarly, values, standards, behaviors, things of that nature. Knowing you and your staff for many years, over a decade now in Arizona, you can really feel the culture and how close you guys are.
Mhm.
Everyone is incredibly successful if they move on from you. But again, you can feel that there is a culture ingrained in everybody that's come from working with you. Is that something that you can even explain? Or it's kind of a feeling, like you said,
Yeah.
it's not an objective data point. It's just the culture that you can really feel when you meet you guys. So how did how important was that, first of all, for you to create there? And how do you explain the culture you guys have there in Arizona?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. And, I think it starts back with a shared purpose or shared mission. So when we select somebody new, we're like, hey, we're committed to this. And we're going to have 10 people on the team go out and interview them. And they're listening for things that maybe will match up with what we're committed to. And then conversely, the people getting interviewed start to hear things that they either like or they don't like. And our system's not for everybody. And I always say that this may not be the place for you, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But we're committed people. Like, if you're not committed to getting better and growing yourself, for starters, and being a great teammate, you're probably not going to be a good fit here. And I don't want to put you in that situation. So we really talk about that when we first start the process. And then, so people know what they're walking into. They're not walking into just a job. You're walking into a really powerful culture and team, and one that's committed to each other and growing each other, that loves each other. I mean, that's what we stand for. And we spend a lot of time doing that. It's funny, as I'm doing this, I'm looking out the window, and we've got our Con Ed week this week, and we've got we've got 25 people here, actually a couple from other teams. And we're building technical skills, but what we do outside of these things is we get together one-on-one, and we'll get together as a group, and we'll just be really vulnerable with each other. Like, I think when the leaders that we have in our group are so powerful, and, when they can watch a lot of different leadership models, they start to open up and realize that all of those people are vulnerable, and they all were where they were at some point, or they all have limitations. And when we can just get okay with knowing what our limitations are and being aware of them, then the team's there to help you patch those up and move forward. And so it's a very loving, giving, serving system is the way I would say it. I mean, my purpose is to love and serve my people and help them get to where they want to get. And when I do that each day, that's who I'm being. Then that creates, I think, an atmosphere of, hey, we're all in this together. And the beauty is it's been really productive for growing people, not just in their technical skills, but in their communication and in their just who they're being. And I think that's the power. When I look back at it, I'm like, well, how are we able to produce so many great people? It's like, well, selection, number one, and then how we grow them internally and challenge them to step outside of just their technical skills and learn, like personal development stuff, or we can teach them a lot of those things. And I just love doing it. I think it's so powerful when I watch somebody that's comes in and they're young, and then they grow, and then they go run another team, and they all have their own speed bumps there. But I always tell them, when you leave, I said, hey, look, we appreciate everything you've done for us, and we wouldn't be the team we are without you. And we're still committed to you, and we're still responsible for how you end up playing out, because if you fail, we failed, is the way we look at things. And when we send, people go off to other teams, like you said, we got a lot of people on other teams, and that's the motto we all have internally, is like, if we send this person out and they fail, we all failed them as teammates. And that just creates this really tight-knit group that really pulls for each other, and we're okay with being vulnerable with each other and saying, hey man, you suck at this, or I suck at that, need help. It's just how it is, and that's how you can grow really quick. But if you're playing games with yourself, or teammates are playing games with each other, and they're not honest and vulnerable, you can't get to where you want to get very quickly.
Yeah. And again, I keep harping on the selection and how many people have gone from Arizona to lead other staffs across the league. And A question for you as the leader. You've built so many great teams. Like you said, it's not just you; it's the team in a whole. Ryan Eubanks with the Detroit Tigers, Kyle Torgerson, Seattle Mariners, Kelly Rhodes also with the Tigers. So many people have gone and left your staff. How do you balance trying to keep a great staff in place, keeping these really talented individuals and wanting what's best for Arizona, but also balancing the fact that you want them to grow as a professional and get those opportunities. And maybe it's kind of like a selfish mindset to keep them with you, but also, you need those people. So how do you balance that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think your selection process better be really good. And it's getting harder and harder to find a really, really high standard athletic trainer. And I think even the college connections that we have are saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Not quite sure exactly why, but it's happening. So we have to constantly be looking for people. I always say this, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but like I feel like we can pick trainers, minor league trainers, or kind of a dime a dozen. So it's like, no, we want like major league head trainers mentality, and you're not going to have that when you show up, but you're going to have enough people that you can watch in our team to go, wow, that they do that really well. So you can watch their leadership style and the way they do it. And we're picking people for that. So the standard's really high. I think if you just pick anyone and hope that they can reach those higher levels of leadership, you're probably going to miss. So it's like, man, we're certain qualities that we're looking for. And you said, me as the leader, I'm just a part of a great team. That's the way I always phrase this. And my teammates know that. I'm like, hey, look, I might have to make the ultimate decision at some point in time, but I virtually never make the decision. The team always makes the decision. The team always decides who's going to be on the team. The team always decides who's not going to be on the team. The team will generally decide who's going to be where and what their roles are. It's kind of crazy. It's so powerful, but like as a leader, I tell people this and they look at me like I'm crazy, but I'm like, I just don't make that many big decisions as the leader, because I think we've created a powerful team. There's a saying, I think it's the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. And so that's kind of our mentality. The pack is what gives me the strength to maybe be the voice piece of the team. But we always, to your point, we have to be looking for certain qualities, because if we don't have the next person up, then we're in trouble, and it's hard. I can't promote to my front office people, hey, we should let these people go to all these other places, but I want to serve them too. And ultimately all of us got an opportunity somewhere. And if we didn't get that opportunity, then we wouldn't be where we're at least at the major league level. So I want everybody to have that same opportunity. And I make sure they know that. Look, when you come here, my goal is to help you get to where you want to go. And it may not be here with us. Hopefully it is. But if it's not, if it's another team, we as the team and me personally, we're going to help you get there, because that's what you're committed to. And in that, all I ask, the commitment back is that you're committed to the team and committed to growing yourself. And if you do those two things and you're a great teammate, we'll all win in it. And that's the system that we've been running for quite a while.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, about growth and development of your younger athletic trainers, one part of the presentation I thought was super interesting was the clarity on team roles, but also not competing against each other, competing with each other for a common goal and purpose. But in an industry like this where, players come up the ranks through the minor leagues, but also athletic trainers are always striving, they want to be in the big leagues. They want to be in your position. They want to grow. How do you manage as a leader the fact that there's so many athletic trainers who want your attention, who want to be by your side at the big league level, but you're all on the same team? How do you kind of manage that growth and development of the younger people?
Yeah. Look, first of all, like great teams are all competitive. If they're not competitive, they're not going to be great. So competition between us, we have competition. I challenge everybody. I want you to be better than me. Like, what do I do well? I know what I do well because we have an evaluation process where the team gets to tell me anonymously what I do well and what I don't do well. And then it's my job as an individual to make those adjustments. And so that creates competitiveness, but it's all, we compete to be better than other teams because that's what we're committed to. We don't compete to beat each other in a way like, hey, we just had a golf tournament. We do that every year in our Con Ed week. We have a party at my house and we have a lot of games and we have a saying, it pays to be a winner. so we do compete, but we compete in the joy of pushing each other forward, not in the joy of, hey, I got to be ahead of this guy to get that opportunity. Because I always try to preach, if we're all pushing each other to be better, everybody's going to end up really good in the end. And that's going to push us above other teams and what they're doing. So we really stay committed to that and competing. Yeah, we do compete, but we compete. One of the things I talk about is 9/11 really made the United States cooperative. Like we were working now to defeat an enemy that attacked us, type of thing, versus, like I seem like our country now, man, we're split on politics, and I'm apolitical, if you will. But it's like, wow, aren't we all on the same team here? And so when you start to see that, you realize that great teams don't do that. So that's what we really preach is like, yeah, we want to be competitive, but we want to be competitive to beat the other team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely makes sense there. And one of, I think, the most powerful statements you made during your presentation last week at the symposium, and I had not heard this phrase this way, but get off of being right, as that makes everyone around you wrong. So really, I was listening to you speak and I just thought, I've never heard it that way. You mentioned we all want to be right. I don't want to be wrong. I want to, if I'm working for you, I want to come with the right information. The ego encourages people to be right, to survive, like you said. Elaborate a bit more on how you learned about this kind of concept and also when the right time to be right is, or, things of that nature when you're working on a team, because you obviously want to uplift your fellow teammates, and being right, like you said, could make them wrong.
Yeah. I love it, Sam. What a great question. And actually one of my favorite pieces to talk around. And look, it took me years to get this, it took me, I don't even know, probably didn't get this till like 10 years ago. And I got it through a few personal development coaches. And when I really sifted it down, I'm like, wow, like what we do as humans, we have an ego, right? And we want to protect that ego at a lot of sacrifice. Sometimes it's lying, stealing, cheating, doing whatever. And then there's the other side. If we can just drop that ego for a minute, because the ego actually helps you in some cases, it helps you with your confidence. It helps the things that maybe are limiting you. But then I would say more so, it actually hurts you, because your ego always wants to be right, because in the human mind is survival, right? Like we think we have to survive. It's just primal in us. And surviving means we got to fit into the group. We got to belong to the group. And so if we're wrong, in our innate mind starts to say, well, if we're wrong, they might kick us out of the group. So believe it or not, we actually go the opposite and try to be right. And when you're right all the time, it keeps you out of being curious, which I tried to play a scene from Ted Lasso, the dart scene. If you haven't seen it, take a look at it. It's awesome. It's about 4 minutes of some really solid stuff about being curious and not judgmental. But the point behind it all is that if we can just be aware, and that's the hardest thing, I think, for me to teach or anybody's awareness. Like, are you aware of where you're good? Are you aware of where you're not? Are you aware of when your ego's limiting you? Are you aware when it's helping you? And this takes a lot of like self-reflection and deep work to really understand that. But what we love to do is gather evidence that we're right. And I always challenge, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but I'm going to ask more questions just to see. Because if I walk into a conversation being right, that makes everybody else wrong, or the person I'm talking to wrong. And I would rather walk into the conversation, because I think this is great communication, with a question. Hey, look, I see this coffee cup this way. I see a handle on it. I see it's white or whatever color I'm describing it. and I'm showing it to the other person, and they're like, well, I don't see a handle on it, because they can't see the same point of view you are.
Yeah.
And so what I always say is get on the same side of the coffee cup as the person you're talking to. And then that doesn't make them wrong. It just makes them, or it allows you to see a different point of view. And when you can see multiple points of view, most of the time you're going to make the right decision, or the best decision for you or the team or whoever it's based on. But that's really a deeper work. But I love teaching it, because nobody's teaching it that I know of in the performance and medical world. And so it's like, wow, I've seen more people get hung up on being right and end up creating a bad storm, getting let go, not, being effective with their players or their staff or coaches because of that. So I love teaching that point. Thanks for asking that.
Yeah, I think that was one of the most powerful things, especially with the video and Ted Lasso. I also encourage everybody to take a look at that. Definitely impactful. One other thing I want to touch on from the presentation, and something I've learned and just observed from working with you and Ryan DePamphlo, anyone who's worked under you, but Ryan specifically, communication as a leader. So when I always say, I don't think I've ever told you this, but when we see each other at the winter meetings, or when I'm out in Arizona and see you and Ryan, I mentioned to a lot of other people that when we're speaking or interacting with you two, it feels like that's all that's going on. There's no distractions. You feel like Ken and Ryan really care about what you're saying, even if you're a nobody or an intern or anything, but the communication, listening, focus is always there. You really make people feel like they're important, no matter what their level of job is, or what they're doing around you. And you mentioned that listening is often underrated in terms of the communication. A lot of people think communicating is talking. Explain a little bit more about, how you guys, it's part of your culture as well, how you guys, implant that in all your staff members in Arizona.
Yeah, I love that. Well, what a great question. And I really appreciate you saying you feel important and you feel heard. And I love that you included Ryan in there. And it's not just us two, it's everybody. We train in this. It's like what you just said was really important. Most people think communication is listening to respond to whatever that person said. And what we train on is, I just want to hear your point of view and where you're coming from. And then if I'm really present to that and I really hear you, then the conversation after that's going to take a different route generally than me trying to speak to try to answer your question. It's like, let me feel where you're coming from. The biggest part of communication is listening. And so when we really get present and listen to that, what somebody's saying, the conversation will play out differently. And we call it dancing in the conversation. Let me just dance with you instead of, drag you someplace. I want to dance with you, hear what you have to say, and move. And, one of the other concepts that we always talk about is you can say whatever you're going to say, but you better be whatever it is you mean. So your actions and, what you're saying and your actions got to match up. If they don't, people don't believe you. It's like your audio has to match your video, is the way we talk about it, right? If what you say, hey, look, my integrity is really big to me, and then you show up 5 minutes late every day, well, your actions aren't matching your words. So like, it's not important to you, or you show up late. If you show up on time, that's your integrity. It's such a simple thing, but it's like, we talk about who you're being. It outweighs anything you say, who you're being. And I'll give you a little piece on this if you can hang with me for a second. This gets deep. But I shared it on one of the slides. As humans, we don't see the world the way it is, right? We think we do. We see it in our own reality, right? Sam sees it in his reality. I see it in my reality, which is inherently different because you came from a different background. You work in a different job. You do, different cultures, blah, 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 blah. So we don't see the world the way it is. The way we see the world is the way we are. And so let me expand on that just a little bit more. We see the world the way we're being. So if I'm being miserable, that I have to go to work every day. And when I show up at work, guess what kind of people you're going to see, right? You're going to see miserable people at work. If I'm being love and service, and that's the way I show up every day, which is my commitment, then that's what I see. I see a lot of love and serving people that I work with. If I show up being an a-hole every day, guess what? I'm going to see a lot of those too. So it's like, does that make sense? It's like you have to really consider the way you're showing up and what you're committed to. And again, I think that's important for everybody to sit down and go, what am I committed to? And how am I going to show up every day? Because that's really who you're being is more powerful than any words you say. And that's the art of communication that we talk about is like, well, you can say whatever you're going to say, but if you're not actually being that, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well said. I think anyone in any profession could take a ton from that point there, and just, the world is what you make it. It's a great point from you on leadership and anyone in a profession. Ken, the last point I want to ask you today. We talked a lot about growing a team as a leader, being part of a team like, Ryan DePamphlo leading the staff there, in the clubhouse every day, very high levels of the profession. Some might say the top of athletic trainers in baseball. On the other end, you gave this presentation to students. So a lot of people are currently applying for PBATS internships for the next season. What advice do you have for someone who's looking to just break in as an intern, but eventually wants to be in your position, wants to lead a staff like Ryan is currently? What's the biggest takeaway and advice you would give for someone who something they can't learn, it's not anatomy, it's not a textbook, real life information they could really take from this?
Right. Yeah, I think it's always hard for young people to really know what their purpose is and what they're actually committed to. And so I think you got to step back, sit with yourself and go, what is it that I really want to do, that I really love to do, that would give me joy every day? And I didn't know that when I was 21 years old or whatever it was, and tore my ACL, and I'm in the training room. I'm like, wow, I kind of like this. This is pretty cool. And then, as I evolved, I'm like, wow, this is serving people, which I don't know. There's something about me. I think I learned this from my mom, but she was such a serving lady. But it was like, I just love serving people. But it wasn't until I was like 40 some years old, I'm like, what is my own purpose? And mine is, when I've simplified it down, is to love and serve people. And I wrote a document to myself. I learned this from one of my coaches that I've worked, not a baseball coach, but a personal development coach. And I said, it's like players, right? They have coaches. So why wouldn't we have coaches? All of us. It's like you had coaches or mentors along the way.
Yep.
But he said, write a document down of what you're committed to. And I would challenge everybody listening here, write down what you are actually committed to and what your purpose is. And that will help you really figure out, is athletic training what I want to do? Because there's nobody's going to be serving you in this profession, right? It's a tough thing. It's a lot of long hours. They don't pay you a lot of money. But it's my purpose is to love and serve people. So when I sifted it down to that, I'm like, okay, that makes coming to work's not even work. It's just fun every day. But to be who you want to be, I think you need to investigate teams and maybe what they stand for, and then apply to those things, because it's the experience that you get in these internships. At least for us, we're very selective at who we take in as interns, because those interns are going to be future hires, right? We don't take interns on as, hey, come on and hang out for a bit of time and see if you like athletic training. We're committed to more than that, and we don't have time to spend a lot of man hours trying to convince somebody you should be in athletic training. So I would say the first thing is figure out that you want to be an athletic trainer and you want to be in baseball, because that's the other thing we hear. We're like, oh, I want to just do the baseball thing, but I'm really going to work in soccer. Like that's top one turnoff. Like, well, we're not going to spend a lot of time with you if you're doing something else. We're looking at you as a potential future hire, and we know the way we're teaching interns is pretty effective. So, and how we select them. So that would be my biggest recommendation, is figure out that you want to do it for sure. investigate the teams that you think are going to teach you the most, not just a local team, like where can I learn the most from? And then jump into that, and then, go all in. And when you're all in with them, what you're going to learn on the job is way more important than anything you're going to learn in school.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Ken, this has been great. Really appreciate you coming on. All this knowledge, sharing with the athletic training community is very powerful stuff in terms of building teams and also advice for the next generation who you're, so passionate about, grooming for the future hires out there. So we appreciate it. And we hope to have you on the show again soon.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Sam. I've enjoyed it. It's always great to talk to you.
Thank you for listening to the PBATS Inside Athletic Training Podcast. For more information about PBATS or athletic training, please visit PBATS.com. See you next time.